Namaskar. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, invited guests, and my dear colleagues. I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all present here for the celebration of 15th Foundation Day of Krishnakanta Hendrick State Open University, which, since its very inception, has been rendering yeoman service to the cause of spread of education among the masses, guided by the vision to reach the unreached. We shall now start the program with the rendition of the university anthem. So may I request everyone present here to kindly rise in your respective seats. Thank you. May I now request the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Krishnakanta Hendrick State Open University, Professor Kondorpa Das, and the Registrar and Chairman of the 15th Foundation Day Celebration Committee of Krishnakanta Hendrick State Open University, Dr. Arupjyoti Chaudhary, to kindly escort our esteemed guests, Professor Mihir Kanti Chaudhary and Professor Nani Gopal Mohanty, to the dais.
Thank you.
এতিয়া আছে বন্তি প্ৰজ্বলন কাৰ্যসূচী। সন্মানীয় নিমন্ত্ৰিত অতিথিসকল আৰু বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ৰ বিষয়াসকলক বন্তি প্ৰজ্বলনৰ বাবে আগবাঢ়ি আহিবলৈ অনুৰোধ জনালোঁ। এই কাৰ্যসূচীত সহযোগ কৰিবলৈ ডক্টৰ নন্দিতা মজুমদাৰ আৰু জুৰি ৰাণী বৰ্মনক অনুৰোধ জনালোঁ। অধ্যাপক মেহিৰ কান্তি চৌধুৰীদেৱক বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় পৰিয়ালৰ সদস্য ডক্টৰ মৃদুস্মিতা দুৱৰা আৰু গাৰ্গী গায়নক এখনি ফুলাম গামোচা স্মাৰক আৰু বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ৰ প্ৰকাশনেৰে সম্বৰ্ধনা জনাবলৈ অনুৰোধ জনালোঁ। ধন্যবাদ। মাননীয় অধ্যাপক ননীগোপাল মহন্তদেৱক এখনি ফুলাম গামোচা স্মাৰক আৰু বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ৰ প্ৰকাশনেৰে সম্বৰ্ধনা জনাবলৈ শবনম আখতাৰ জামান আৰু ডক্টৰ অৰুণিমা বৰাক অনুৰোধ জনালোঁ। ধন্যবাদ। We are indeed privileged to have amongst us many distinguished guests. We have here with us Founder Vice Chancellor of Krishnakanta Handike State Open University, Professor Srinath Barua sir. May I request Gargi Gayon to felicitate sir with a fulam gamusa. We also have amongst us Dr. Pradyut Goswami, former Vice Chancellor, Assam Science and Technology University. I request Dr. Mridusmita Dora to kindly felicitate sir. We are indeed privileged to have amongst us our former registrar, Sri Rajat Baran Mohanta sir amongst us. I request Shobnam Akhtar Zaman to felicitate sir with a fulam gamusa. Thank you. I now request Honorable Vice Chancellor of Krishnakanta Handike State Open University, Professor Kandharpa Das, to deliver his welcome address on this auspicious occasion.
Good afternoon, respected Professor Mehir Kanti Chaudhary, Advisor to the Government of Assam and former Vice Chancellor Tezpur University and Chief Guest of today's function, Professor Nonigopal Mahanta, Director, Center for Southeast Asian Studies, Guwahati University, and Speaker for the Foundation Day Lecture, respected Professor Srinath Barua, Founder Vice Chancellor of KK Handike State Open University, Professor Pradyut Goswami, former Vice Chancellor, Assam Science and Technology University, Mr. Rajat Baran Mohanta, the former Registrar of Krishnakanta Handike State Open University, Honorable Member of the Board of Management, Academic Council, invited guests, dignitaries, faculty members, officers, and employees of the Handike State Open University, colleagues from the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a privilege for me to welcome you all to this 15th Foundation Day celebration of the university. 14 years ago, on this auspicious day, the 14th Open University of the country, named after the illustrious son of Assam, the great Sanskrit scholar Krishnakanta Handike, came into being with joining of its first Vice Chancellor to deliver quality higher education to the marginalized and disadvantaged section of the society who otherwise were left out from the ambit of higher education for various reasons, be it economic, social, or geographic. Krishnakanta Handike State Open University is the first and only state open university of the entire Northeast region. The philosophy and the vision of the university are aptly reflected in the declared motto, education beyond barriers. The university stands for access and equity. It stands for social justice and democratization of higher education. Ours is the university where unwillingness to learn is the only disqualification for enrollment. Krishnaganda Handikoi State Open University, which is modest beginning, has been able to fulfill the educational aspiration of a large section of the population of this region. The first 3 academic years of the university served just more than 13,000 learners, 13,391 to be exact. Till date, the university enrolled more than 370,000 learners in its various programs. In the field of teacher education, the university has made a significant contribution in training 57,611 teachers learners of the state in its Diploma in Elementary Education program during the period 2012 and 2017. This is indeed a great achievement, as the primary education is considered to be backbone of a socio-economic development of the country. Viewed in this context, Krishnaganda Handikoi State Open University has successfully provided the necessary framework and implementation of an empowerment journey not only for the field of education, but also this institution has acted as a catalyst for the socio-economic transformation of this region. The university currently offers 14 undergraduate programs, 7 postgraduate programs, and other 22 diploma and certificate programs. These programs are designed in accordance with the educational aspiration of the learners, knowledge and skills that would be expected from them in the days to come. In a short span of existence, the university has been able to create an impression in the education sector of the region by providing access to the need-based higher education for the learners. It is pertinent to note that the learner base of the university is quite diverse, as they include learners belonging to the various disadvantaged sections of the society with large number of female candidates. Human resource development is one of the primary concerns of the state. Economic development is always guided by the most important question, for whom? Therefore, every nation tries to devise some mechanism to provide education to the section of the society despite huge differences in the socio-economic conditions. The technical criteria to understand this process is the concept of gross enrollment ratio, the GER. At present, the GER of the country in higher education is 26.3%, and in which the contribution of open universities together stands at 12%. The Krishnaganda Handikoi State Open University, being the only open university in the entire Northeast, has made a substantial contribution in enhancing the GER of the country. Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers of the United States and noted American polymath, once said, "An investment in education pays the best interest." Indeed, knowledge which seems to be from education is said to be one of the building blocks of a strong society. It empowers an individual to move ahead in the right direction. Knowledge is what can separate one from the pack. It can take you as high as you want if you put it into action. However, not many are fortunate enough to reap the benefit of higher education and professional education due to certain unavoidable reasons. Providing quality education at the higher and professional level has become a daunting task for the government and the policymakers. Open and distance learning system has emerged as an answer to this challenge. Over the years, KK Hendik State Open University played its due role in providing access to quality higher education in this part of the country through open and distance learning mode. From 2020-21 academic session, the university has introduced a unique lateral entry system for the learners into various academic programs. The new system aimed at accommodating the large section of the students who had to discontinue their formal higher education halfway due to the pandemic and other socioeconomic reasons by providing them with an opportunity to come back and complete their degrees through open and distance learning. We can proudly say that Krishnagandha Handikoi State Open University has become a people's university in the real sense of the term, which was coined by Charles Dickens in 1859 for University of London. Because in 1859, the University of London, for the first time in history, provided an opportunity to a large section of the society to become a university scholar without even stepping their feet at the university campus. The COVID-19 pandemic threw the entire academic community of the globe in an unusual situation and forced everybody to shift their focus to innovate new methodology in teaching learning in order to keep the door of learning for the students who were deprived of their access to the learning due to closure of the educational institutions across the globe. Both conventional face-to-face as well as open and distance learning institutions tried to cope up with the new normal by adapting themselves into online mode of teaching learning. Since then, Krishnagandha Handikoi State Open University has been working towards reorienting its teaching learning ecosystem into a more student-centric learning system, adopting an online teaching learning mode. The university made extensive use of web-based support services so that learners do not feel isolated and discouraged while pursuing their different academic programs. Live online classes, audiovisual preparations, presentations, and links of the pre-recorded programs are some of the different online support services that are provided for the benefit of the learners. Apart from that, measures have been taken so that learners can effectively utilize the different digital educational resources that are widely available in the public domain. The KK Hendrick State Open University had put emphasis on integrated information and communication technology into the folds of teaching learning as a part of its quality mandate. Like the rest of the globe, blended learning has become the order of the day for the KK Hendrick State Open University as well. With this objective in mind, the university has launched its Learning Management System, LMS, eVita. We are proud to share with you that the Krishnagandha Handikoi State Open University became the first open university in the country to address the problem of delivering education during the COVID situation by organizing an international online conference in April 22 to 21st and 22nd on the theme Teaching Learning in the Time of Pandemic, Role of Online Learning. We are aware of the fact that the pandemic had altered the educational scenario of the world, and there is an urgent need to design and to find out the framework of how people could make best use of the online resources during the pandemic. Experts and ODL practitioners from across the globe took part in online conferences and shared their ideas and experiences. Scholars from Canada, Russia, Vietnam, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Philippines, Indonesia, Japan, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and from different countries have joined the conferences and made it an unique event. The conference provided a unique opportunity to share experience and a plan of action to deal with the peculiar situation created by the pandemic and to prepare ourselves to face the new normal situation both at global and the regional level. Educational institutions, along with their educational activities, has also responsibility to carry out extension activities towards overall uplift of the society. As a part of its social responsibility and extension activities, the Krishnagandha Handikoi State Open University established two missions in 2017. Number one, the Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Students Welfare Fund and Mother Teresa Social Welfare Mission. The university adopted 5 villages in the greater Rani area called Hanapara, Andheri Julipara, Ganapati, Puransu Gurberia and Matia Islampur with an objective to economically and socially empower the members of these villages. During the last 3 years, the university has been organizing various activities towards fulfilling these objectives. The most recent activity is a 21-day long vocational training on basic electrical wiring for the youth of these villages, which is still going on. The participation by a large number of girls in this training for the electrician trade, which has been traditionally considered a male profession, is quite encouraging. This would certainly play a significant role in empowering the women in the 5 remote villages. The university has also decided to introduce few scholarships in the name of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam for the research scholars to be enrolled in 2020-2021 from the mission of APJ Abdul Kalam Students Welfare Mission. Further, in order to bring more diversity to our educational programs, the university has launched various new programs from the current academic year. One of the most notable is the 6 months certificate program on Japanese language and culture in collaboration with Japan Foundation. Another is the diploma in geoinformatics. The Academic Council of the university recently decided to offer all postgraduate programs also in Assamese and already started preparation towards developing the learning material in the Assamese. Since inception, the university has been organizing a number of lectures both in academic, community and general public. Nobel laureate Kailash Satyarthi, internationally acclaimed filmmaker Buddhadev Bhattacharjee, Honorable Speaker of the Assam Legislative Assembly, Mr. Hitendra Nath Goswami, former Rajya Sabha MP Dr. Nogen Soikia are some of the persons who have enriched the intellectual life of the state by delivering speeches at different points of the time in programs organized by the university. Again, scholars like Professor Ranjit Dev Goswami, Professor Virendranath Datta, Professor Jamini Bhagavati, Mr. Madan Prasad Bejbura, Professor Minal Miri, Professor Swaraj Basu, Professor Narendra Yadav, Professor Sanjay Mishra, Professor Jogendra Narayan Bhuya, and others also delivered various lectures in the university platform. In 2017, His Holiness Dalai Lama blessed our university with his gracious visit and a public lecture. Ours is a young university. It has a pool of dynamic and young academicians as its faculty members, and also equally dynamic non-academic staff and officers who has been working relentlessly so as to uphold the university's motto, education beyond barriers. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all again to this 15th Foundation Day celebrations. I, on behalf of the KK Hendricks State Open University family, express our deep gratitude to my two predecessors, Professor Srinath Borua and Dr. Hitesh Deka, for successfully leading this university to today's position. Using this opportunity, I would also like to express our sincere gratitude and thanks to the Honorable Chancellor of the University, Professor Jagdish Mukhi, Honorable Chief Minister and Education Minister of Assam, for their continued support to the university. I would like to put on record our sincere gratitude to Honorable Advisor of Education, Government of Assam, Professor Mihir Kanti Chaudhary, for his constant patronage and support to the university. To conclude, I must congratulate each and every member of the KK Hendricks State Open University family for successfully creating a niche for the university in the field of open and distance learning, in particular, and higher education in general in this part of the country, by immensely contributing in reaching the unreached. I look forward to receiving continued support and active participation from all stakeholders of the university and taking the university forward in the days to come. Thank you. Jai to Krishnakanta Handikoi State Open University. Jai Aham. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking address and valuable insights. Krishnakanta Handikoi Rajyik Mukta Vishwavidyalaya অধ্যয়ন কেন্দ্ৰৰ ডিন তথা পঞ্চদশ প্ৰতিষ্ঠা দিৱসৰ আহ্বায়ক সন্মানীয় ডক্টৰ দিব্যজ্যোতি মহন্তদেৱক এই উদযাপন সম্পৰ্কে দুআষাৰ মন্তব্য ৰাখিবলৈ মঞ্চলৈ আমন্ত্ৰণ জনালোঁ।
Namaskar, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Krishnakanta Khandikoi State Open University, internationally acclaimed chemical scientist and the advisor to education, Government of Assam, Professor M. K. Chaudhary sir, the eminent scholar who has been invited to deliver the Foundation Day lecture, Professor Noni Gopal Mohanto, our Register, our former and founder Vice Chancellor, Professor Borua sir, and eminent guests in the audience, officers, teachers, and other employees. So it is a great saying of a Buddhist monk that, may I be a protector for those without one, a guide for all travelers on the way. May I be a breeze, a boat, and a sea for all who wish to cross the water. So with that motto, the university is extending its service since 2006 with the motto, Education Beyond Barriers. Already our Honorable Vice Chancellor has given you in brief what is doing by the university since its inception. So I am not going to repeat those things again. So today is our celebration day. It is our 15th Foundation Day. So we have a journey of 1 decade and a half. But if we look through the eyes of Robert Frost, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So yes, we have promises to keep and proceed further with the motto, Education Beyond Barrier. From all the developments of the university till date, what I perceive is that the stone that is dropped grows. The sound reverberates in the hearts, reminds us the goal. Yes, we have to go yards and miles for years together. So we are happy to share with you that our Foundation Day celebration in this morning was started with hoisting of the university flag, followed by the plantation in the university campus. Again, after this Foundation Day lecture presentation, we have a cultural program of our university family members by this evening at our city campus. I, as convener of the 15th Foundation Day celebration, welcome you all to listening to the lectures of these two prominent persons. মই এইখিনি কোৱাৰ লগতে আমাৰ ভাৰতবৰ্ষৰ প্ৰাক্তন ৰাষ্ট্ৰপতি বিশিষ্ট বিজ্ঞানী APJ আব্দুল কালামৰ এটা সৰু কথা মই ক'ব বিচাৰিছিলোঁ। তেওঁ যেতিয়া ভাৰতৰ ৰাষ্ট্ৰপতি আছিলে তেতিয়া এদিন এগৰাকী মহিলা তেওঁৰ ওচৰলৈ গৈছিল। সেই মহিলাগৰাকীৰ বয়স তেতিয়া 88 years, 88 বছৰ। সেই মহিলাগৰাকী গৈ আব্দুল কালামক এখন কিতাপ প্ৰেজেণ্ট কৰিছিল। সেই কিতাপখনৰ নাম হ'ল Bride at 10 and Mother at 15। সেই মহিলাগৰাকীৰ ছগৰাকী ছোৱালী, সেই মহিলাগৰাকীক যেতিয়া বিয়া দিছিল তেওঁৰ বয়স আছিল 10 বছৰ, আৰু তেওঁৰ প্ৰথম কন্যা সন্তান যেতিয়া জন্ম হৈছিলে তেওঁৰ বয়স আছিল 15 বছৰ। তেওঁৰ আজীৱন নাতি নাতিনীক লৈ পেলাই সংসাৰ চলালে, কিন্তু তেওঁ পঢ়া শুনা কৰিব নোৱাৰিলে। 78 yearsত তেওঁ আন্নামালা ইউনিভাৰ্চিটিৰ দিল্লী চেণ্টাৰত অপেন এণ্ড ডিষ্টেঞ্চ লাৰ্ণিং মোডত তেওঁ এডমিশ্যন ল'লে মাষ্টাৰ ডিগ্ৰী। তেওঁ বিয়া যেতিয়া হৈছিল 10 বছৰত, তেওঁ তেতিয়া ক্লাছ 5ৰ এগৰাকী ছাত্ৰী আছিল। বিভিন্ন জ্বালা যন্ত্ৰণাৰ মাজতো তেওঁ পঢ়ি গ্ৰেজুৱেশ্যন ল'লে, কিন্তু তেওঁৰ এটা সপোন থাকিল যে তেওঁ মাষ্টাৰ ডিগ্ৰী কৰিব, আৰু তেওঁ 78ত আন্নামালা ইউনিভাৰ্চিটিত মাষ্টাৰ ডিগ্ৰীত এডমিশ্যন ল'লে আৰু মাষ্টাৰ ডিগ্ৰী পাছ কৰিলে। কৰি তেওঁ এই জীৱন জৰা এই যি পৰিক্ৰমা, সেই পৰিক্ৰমাত লৈ পেলাই তেওঁ এইখন কিতাপ লিখিলে, ব্ৰাইড এট 10 এণ্ড মাদাৰ এট 15। আমি কৃষ্ণকান্ত সন্দিকৈ ৰাজ্যিক মুক্ত বিশ্ববিদ্যালয় এনেকুৱা বহু কাম কৰি আছোঁ, যিবিলাকৰ পৰা হয়তো আমি উদ্বুদ্ধ হওঁ আৰু সমাজো আগবাঢ়ি গৈ আছে। মই এইখিনিকে ক'লোঁ, কৈ আজি এই অনুষ্ঠানৰ মংগল কামনা কৰিছোঁ। নমস্কাৰ। জয়তু কৃষ্ণকান্ত সন্দিকৈ ৰাজ্যিক মুক্ত বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়। নমস্কাৰ।
প্ৰেৰণামূলক ভাষণটিৰ বাবে ধন্যবাদ জনালোঁ। We are indeed privileged to have amongst us internationally acclaimed chemical scientist, Professor Mihir Kanti Chaudhary, as the chief guest of the day. Recipient of Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award in Chemical Sciences, Professor Chaudhary served as the Vice Chancellor of Tejpur University for 2 successive terms, and at present he is the Advisor, Education, Government of Assam. Besides holding both US and Indian patents, he has published significant research articles in various journals of international repute. Northeast Excellence Award on Environment, Fellow of Indian Academy of Sciences, Camejo Award, etc. are some of the awards and honors conferred upon him. It is our pleasure to have you here, sir. Now I request our chief guest, Professor Mihir Kanti Chaudhary, to deliver his speech in this August gathering.
The founding Vice Chancellor of the KKND State Open University, Professor Shinhan Barua, the current Vice Chancellor of the University, Professor Das, the members of the board, academic council, and other important academic bodies of the university, former registrar, present registrar, colleagues on the faculty, non-teaching staff, students who may not be here but through distance, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen. Distance education I consider as a movement, because I am convinced that that has revolutionized the education system, and rightly so, metamorphosed from where it started in 1800 to what it is now, and I expect far more from this. There are certain things I am just going to touch upon, maybe to have a recap for myself so that I do not forget the role, the importance, the contribution of distance education, because I am one of those humble planners of education for the country, for the state. I play my very humble roles to help the education system. And as I said, I reaffirm that distance education is one of the very, very important components of the whole education system, which I shall be able to justify in next few minutes. For those who have the confusion, particularly the younger colleagues, that how the distance education is defined, how is it really critically different from the conventional mode of education. So I'll just quickly give the definition. Unlike the traditional education which takes or which is conducted or which are conducted under one roof, the distance education is something that is conducted under different roofs, may be separated by miles, kilometers, whatever. Now, distance education, unfortunately, have been
misunderstood by many. I may not be an exclusion because of limited knowledge about distance education, what it is all about, and what it is giving to the society. So it is a lack of knowledge which made us poorly placing distance education in the realm of education. Ladies and gentlemen, distance education is not a new thing in the charter of educational system. It started as early as in 1800 in the University of Chicago in United States. And then I must tell you, before I proceed further, that in the domain of distance education, it is the British system who have been, UK, have been making the most significant contribution, much more than any other country, including US. US also is certainly marching ahead with significant progresses, developments, and contribution. In the year 1840, this concept of correspondence education or distance education, whatever might have been called at that point in time, meaning one and the same, was used for shorthand practicing to learn and know more about Bible, as was stated by Pittman, which you must have known for many years ago. As the year progresses in 74, distance education was also incorporated in the University of Illinois, Wesleyan University more precisely. In the year 1890, the correspondence education or distance education was received with ridicule, laughed at, because then the elite thought it is an excuse. It's a kind of eyewash for doing nothing. That was the concept at that point in time. But soon it took a different turn. More democratic ideas were provided. Lot of educational opportunity, access, etc. came through, and then it started benefiting people, particularly, please note, the women, the professionals who are working in different other fields, physically challenged, individuals deprived for education, and the less dominated class of the people. In the pre-industrial era of Britain, like it was in India years ago, the education was the privilege of males. It was there in India also, we have studied in our older literature. But then this distance education came handy, and what it did, we are going to hear in a few moments from now. At that point in time, post office played a very important role for distance education. Come the period when the First World War, 1914, 1918, that period, the radio came into the fore. In 50s, 1950s, television, and there was a paradigm shift in distance education by use of these technologies. In the year 1920, Wisconsin's School of the Air, meaning again it's a kind of a distance education, announced that they have extended their boundaries beyond the university campus and leading it to the periphery of the state. So distance education started spreading its tentacles by and by. In 1926, there was a little bit of formalization of the distance education through the formation of National Home Council, and its mandate was to deal with all aspects of correspondence education, distance education. By 1950, what happened? In a developing world particularly, the population explosion was there. It was over 50 billion, and the country with lot of poverty, lack of literacy, full of disease, but with an aspiration for education, for themselves and for their children. Now, how to handle that situation at that point in time? We have to go in between a little bit, jumping a few stages, I'll come back. Then came a historically important year, 1969, when the British or the Britain Open University or British Open University got its founding, firm footing, and with well-designed courses, effective learning material, well-delivery systems, etc., they benefited a large number of undergraduate and postgraduate students. Also, associate students. Associate students is something like who are not, I'm sure you know, who are not really full-fledged students, but take as a part of their vocation, part of their study program, and eventually many of them become the full-fledged students. Some, of course, get lost in the halfway through or so. So that was the period when the importance or real importance of distance education started getting realized by and by. Then what happened? The drawing upon the examples of British Open University, many developing countries, including India, China, Pakistan, and many others, joined the bandwagon, started in some form or the other incorporating distance education, tried to provide benefit in terms of literacy and job orientation. That was the time Turkey joined this movement. And what they did, from that time, in about 12 years, their student strength under distance education went almost to 1 million or slightly beyond. And then that country became the 6th largest distance education provider. Okay? So this is how the thing started taking shape, becoming popular, benefiting people. In 1980, the thinkers at that time, one of the lead was Sir Keegan, had summarized the 6 very important key elements for distance education, which I think remains still very, very relevant and important in the domain of distance education. One is that teacher and taught are separate identities, separate by geographical distances, but the show goes on. In distance education, please know, the educational institute either is a standalone with its name and fame, or is a part of traditional universities providing distance education. Is extremely important. Who provides what? A distance education provided by Northwestern University of US is going to be certainly regarded because it is the Northwestern University. It is Yale, okay, or it is Harvard University. So people know that what is expected, and that's what they live up to. So this is important. Media linking teachers and learners. Communication became 2 ways. I can teach, students can, or learners can also ask me questions. Then the students are not supposed to be considered as a group. They can be individual as well. They can be in a group, but they can be individual. And what about the teacher? teacher is in industrial form, means highly mechanical, highly topical, highly efficient to provide the teaching materials or teaching methodologies and different teaching techniques. When, as I said, at the beginning, it was more of correspondence education rather than distance education. And there was an international council governing correspondence education. They, for some good reasons, I will not go into detail, decided to re-Christian CE, that is correspondence education, to distance education. Then onward, distance education started getting more and more prominence as it is now. In the year 1986, the Wisconsin University started teaching in the distance mode with more than recent and powerful technological advancement and their use to have the effective distance education. Many developed countries and developing countries also adopted open university model of UK. But the point that I say should not be lost track of, that the UK still continue to be the leaders in distance education. Now, with this, the distance education became more popular, and this popularity and its usefulness was also very appropriately realized by the corporate sector. And that led to establishment of Technological University of Distance Education at Colorado in the United States. And the record says that particular program incorporates 500 engineering and technological courses. I wonder why we should not do that kind of thing, if not today, tomorrow in India. Why not the KK Handy Open State University also doesn't do that. It was there at certain point in time. I go by my memory. Then I think it was advised to be stopped. So we have to understand the reasons as to why and try to make over, try to repair those damages, try to fill up those gaps that were there. But I think it should go. I know someone from my own family just completed masters in the United States who works for Apple, and this was in the distance mode. How rigorous it was, I could make out, though she has been in US, but we are in touch every week or even more frequently. So then this is what it is, and she is masters in engineering. She's a staff member of the Apple, as I said, very senior officer. But so this is where the distance education stands, even for technical education. So I would like all the thinkers, all the planners to think, try to see that we can do in this country also again with bank. Now this popularity attracted corporate houses, so much so they started funding in millions of dollars. So currently it is slightly over $40 billion that many of these corporate houses put in together for distance education, mainly to benefit their own employees, but also to benefit others. And those are some of the names, big names are Kodak, IBM, Fortune 500, Microsoft, GE, and industries like that. So please remember, for a corporate house, they can treat you in a 7-star, 10-star hotel when they have to give a party. But coming to business, every pound, every dollar, every rupee matters to them. So when they spend $40 billion per year, you can understand the importance that they have realized, and they continue to do so. which I would expect in India also should be happening, if not today, tomorrow. As I said, the British Open University still plays a very dominant role, important role. They provide quarterly accessions. From that we can get an idea what is going on where all over the world. And then we can make assessment and then progress accordingly. You can have it in online as well. I said it may be just repeated briefly for continuation that US certainly has made very significant progress, but UK is still much ahead, doing much more forcefully than the other countries. In the year 1987, not too long ago, in the US only 10 states had the distance education facility. But in 2 years from 1987, that is by 1989, almost all states incorporated distance education in their fold. Now, the global concern emerged more on distance education, particularly when the spread was realized and observed in terms of the magnitude. These then led to propose European Open University. I have mentioned about British Open University, which all of us know. And then there was a proposal for opening up European Open University. What was the reason? The reason was, you see how critically the planners analyze, not superficially as many of us at many times do. Many countries with different culture started availing the benefit. The question came in that how to normalize so that the benefit accrued can also be internationally gauged by whether an African country or India or any country in the United Kingdom or in the United States. So that was the reason they proposed to have European Open University, which I am sure is going on very well. And thereby then the domain or area, geographical area, in that sense, in a hypothetical sense, started shrinking. One became very close to the other. In 1990s, the economic and political powers realized the importance and need for more of information. And therefore, there was endeavor how to do that. And at that point in time, many of you who are in the distance education business must be remembering the name of Takeshi Utsumi, who was the president of GLOSAS, as a global organization, and came up with an idea of global university and global lecture theater or lecture hall. The idea was to benefit the less privileged. So there has been a concern, and there should be rightly a concern for the less privileged, also of the developed countries, which is a point I thought I should bring home. Now, then we shift a little bit distance education in developing countries, countries like ours, but there are some practical issues. One of the most dangerous issues is who designs what for whom. I repeat, who designs in the distance education? Who designs what and for whom? Please catch me well on this point. And why was it required? As a dangerous point I said. In 1980s, there was a large number of students gaining access to distance education from various corners of the world, and the local experts were supposed to develop the materials for them. And sure enough, they were not equipped. Even now, many of the local experts are not equipped. So what did they do? They imported program from countries like Australia, UK, US, and those advanced countries also developing distance education system. As a result, what had happened, the whole thing was giving a dismal situation, because the culture in London, culture in England, is not the culture of Guwahati. The language or the combined languages therein is different. So something that is devised for a particular culture cannot be just simply taken and making some cosmetic changes here and there. So this is one of the challenging tasks for distance education even now. I shall come in a few seconds on that issue. Yet another problem, particularly those of my colleagues who have been spending years in distance education and going to spend many more years, is that unfortunately there is no theoretical foundation for programmatic research in distance education. That is what I have learned from the literature that I have studied over the years. And because there was no agreement, several propositions came in, but it seems there is a lack of agreement. So something needs to be done, because there is a need for a theoretical foundation, theoretical basis for distance education. Kindly just look at it. We come closer home. In India, the distance education. In fact, distance education in some form started and practiced as early as in 1962 in Delhi University. And they had a school or a center called Center for Correspondence Studies or Correspondence Courses and Continuing Education, as early as that. Then came the famous Kothari Commission. They, on their own and also taking cognizance of what has been going on and the response, they tried to formalize, and they then authorized University Grants Commission to formulate rules and regulation guidelines for distance education in Indian universities. That gave a fillip. Many more correspondence education institutions or courses in different universities started pouring in, and the University of Mysore and Andhra were some of the two early names entering this field. But one point I would like to not to miss is that whether it was in the British Open School or our own open universities at Andhra and Mysore, there was no prerequisite. Please note this point. Anyone with any kind of background, willing, capable, or otherwise, that can be seen afterwards, could take admission, and many have cleared also. Like our Professor Dibbojyoti Mohanto gave a case of a lady after 5 class. She stated we went to masters, if I have understood it right, after so many years, and cleared the master. So it is something like this. This may also require thinking. If my understanding serves me right, I find that this is not the case now in any of the open universities, including KKHD Open University. You need, am I right? You need some basic education before I go for any higher education. But that was not there, and it worked very well. So I would request the thinkers, the policymakers, to ponder upon it and to see what can be done. I cannot say that you have to study the plus and minus of both sides and see what can be done, because after all, it is for the benefit of not individuals like you and me, but for the people. Andhra Pradesh University, then Open University, has been christened as Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University in Hyderabad, and is named still like this even now. For India, we are in distance education in India. The 2 years, 1985 and 1986, are very, very important if I may vouch for this. Why? Because in 1985, again I'm going from my recollection, if I am wrong, please correct me. The Act of Open University, IGNOU, was passed. It started in 83, 84, but 85 I think it was passed. And the university got its footing, at least on papers, in 1986 and started functioning. And the planners had good heart. They gave the mandate to IGNOU that you not only have to teach in the distance education mode, but also to mentor, monitor, cooperate, guide other universities, open universities maybe, or distance learning courses are there, which is a must. I think they should do it very strictly, which has not been going that strictly in the current years. I find even for IGNOU, there are contact classes. Because either many students do not attend, teachers do not take interest in many instances, but many have been qualified with IGNOU, let alone other. And I have firm evidence on which I am speaking. Because I cannot just make jokes. I hold a position. So whatever I say, I have to be able to prove, and I have proofs. And that should not continue. Now, consequent upon this, several other states started opening the open universities, like Kota in Rajasthan, Nashik in Maharashtra, Nalanda in Patna, and so forth. This was also then followed by Madhya Pradesh and Karnataka. At present, by the way, I must tell you, I do not know whether that colleague Dr. Das is here, who has written an article, part of the editorial. Today it appeared. Why I am mentioning? Because it's quite informative, but then there are, according to me, there are 2 or 3 important slips.